always look good. I want to look extra good.
Well, that is true.
All right, I'm ready.
The Whiskey Rebellion. The first American Civil War.
Nice.
After the American Rebellion against the British, after the Articles of Confederation, after the first presidency
He's
of
right.
George Washington,
Yeah,
The
I've
president
heard
of the sea?
No, presidents.
Presidency.
Stop
Presidency.
interrupting. Not
Presidency.
interrupt.
fuck you.
Don't interrupt.
Washington is in Philadelphia, which was the capital at that time.
Yep.
It was the
Fact checking.
1790s.
What year?
1792.
Yep, sure.
The Constitution was like 1790. And that's when he was elected.
Yeah.
And the war ended in 1786
Yes.
against the British
Sure
in
was.
Virginia somewhere, or against Cromwell. Something. I don't know.
Cromwell?
Yeah, sure, why not? The fucking guy. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
America was fucking broke.
Yeah.
Broke as shit.
Beep, beep. Gotta censor it.
You don't have to bleep anything.
Say the post.
So, Washington, President Washington, and Hamilton, not a president, but a cabinet member of Washington's first term, get to talking, and they decide that you should tax alcohol, specifically whiskey. They didn't really differentiate back then. It was just whiskey. You should tax whiskey. So they said, all right, we're going to do this shit. We're going to tax whiskey, and we're going to make a lot of money off of this, and we're going to pay off our debts because we are in debt to basically every country in the world except for Britain, and
Mostly France.
France beat their ass, and we owe France a lot of money, and this is not good, so we need some money.
Yeah.
Hold on. Not good. So, they passed this law saying that all alcohol has to be taxed. And they send people out to collect those taxes. And in that time, Pittsburgh was the Wild West. The country was really small back then, and Pittsburgh was literally the edge of the country. So they sent a tax collector out to Pittsburgh. And this guy goes out there and says, hey, you need to pay us for all the alcohol that you're making because we're the federal government and that's what you do. Well, the people in Pittsburgh were super pissed off about that because in Pittsburgh, they didn't have any money. They literally used whiskey as currency. They would trade like a bottle of whiskey for a fucking chicken. That was how they paid for shit back then. And really, just as a side note, if you were an alcoholic, you were a really bad provider because you were literally drinking your money away. You were drinking your whiskey, which was used to buy food. But that's what they did in Pittsburgh. And the federal government shows up and says, well, yeah, basically, yeah. So the federal government shows up and says, you gotta pay us taxes on all this fucking whiskey that you're making. And the people in Pittsburgh say, fuck that. We're not doing that shit. We don't care. So they take the tax collector and they tar and feather. Straight up tar and feather the guy. Which, interestingly, does not kill you.
Nope.
So they tar and feather this tax collector, and what does he do? He goes back to fucking Philadelphia. Tarred and feathered. Back to Washington and Hamilton. And he's just like, I got tarred and feathered. Really not that happy right now. People in Pittsburgh, fucking insane. Do something about it. So Washington is like, well, shit. We gotta do something here. But Washington is the hero of the revolution. And he's also kind of old at this point. So he doesn't want to go lead an army. So instead, he says to Hamilton, listen, I want you to raise 10,000 soldiers in the Philadelphia area, and I want you to march them over the Appalachia, and I want you to take them to Pittsburgh, and I want you to fuck shit up. And Hamilton is a total hawk. And he's like, done and done.
Exactly.
So he does. He builds public support in all the newspapers in Philadelphia, bashing people in Pittsburgh and saying, they're savages, we need to go fuck their shit up and make them be part of America. But the thing about Pittsburgh is they had a legitimate excuse for being mad about being taxed because they were getting no support whatsoever. The British, after the Revolutionary War, did not abandon the outer forts in the outskirts of what at that time was America. East.
West.
No, east.
East.
America side
Oh.
of the Mississippi.
Oh,
East
Oh.
of the Mississippi. America side of the Mississippi. They still had forts with British soldiers on American soil. And there were, like, fucking crazy French people, too, with their own forts, randomly, in American soil. And then there were the fucking Indians. With, not forts, but they were there. And they killed American settlers in Pittsburgh, which was the frontier at that time. So the people in Pittsburgh were like, oh, what the fuck? We have no support. We have no federal backing. We're fighting the British and the French and the Indians and anybody else who happens to be in this area. And you're not helping us in the least bit. And now you want to tax our whiskey. Well, fuck that. So they're pissed off. And Washington really kind of doesn't care. And Hamilton totally doesn't care. He could care less. He really does not respect the people out in the frontier. He is an urban guy. He's a business guy. He looks at those farmers who are brewing their own whiskey, and he's just like, oh, what the fuck? Why are you not trading with Britain? Because that's what you should be doing. So he gets 10,000 volunteers in Philadelphia and totally manipulates the people in Philadelphia into thinking like, oh my god, Pittsburgh, they're totally crazy and you should totally, like, fuck their shit up. So he gets all of them together and starts marching out towards Pittsburgh. And he's doing it kind of slowly, like, really taking his time and just kind of like building his aura. It's like, I'm fucking Alexander Hamilton and I've got an army of 10,000 people and whatever. Andrew Burr hasn't killed me yet, so I'm fucking awesome. I'm gonna be on the $10 bill. And he's sending letters to Washington talking about like, oh my god, this is so awesome, and look, nobody's died from cholera yet, or yellow fever, or whatever crazy-ass diseases existed back then, and I'm totally okay with this mission. And so he finally gets to Pittsburgh, shows up with 10,000 people, and he's like, I'm Hamilton, I got 10,000 guys. What? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And of course, the people in Pittsburgh are like, well, shit. We got like 10 folks with maybe a shotgun. I don't know. I don't even know if they had shotguns back then. They had muskets or something. I don't know. And that's basically it. Like single shot pistols. And they're up against the entire sort of federal army or whatever. And that was basically it. Like, it just ended. Like, the people in Pittsburgh are like, totally sorry for tarring and feathering your dude. We apologize. We're not really gonna... Oh, that's a bummer. But it was pretty much done. We're not gonna like turn anybody in, and like we're just gonna basically say sorry, and you're gonna go on back to Philadelphia, and you're not gonna kill any of us because that would be a real bummer. But at the same time, you should really kind of help us out with all these problems that we're having because there are like Indians and British and French and I don't know, Russians and Iraqis and who knows at that point. There are all these crazy enemies right now. And that's what happened. They did. The federal government, like Hamilton came back and went to Washington and was like, done. Got it. Got this shit taken care of. We're going to start getting money from them. But by the by, we got to start like totally killing all their enemies because they're kind of pissed off. So we should kind of do that. And Washington's okay with that. And he's like, all right, fuck the British. Fuck the French. Fuck the Indians. Fuck whoever else is out there. We own everything.
There's a lot of bleeps.
Let's just totally do this right now. And that was the first rebellion against the American government, and it was important because it set precedent. Because every rebellion after that, until the Civil War, was so fucking crushed. Only 2 years after that, I believe it was called the Hayes Rebellion in Massachusetts.